Skip it up and that up. Hi everyone, this is Rich of Review Tech USA, and I am the stupidest person you ever met in your life. Jay will have to bleep that out because this is 3 seconds into the video. I couldn't even get the tutorial of Palworld. I'm not kidding. I built a bench, I beat the crap out of a bird. I'm not kidding. And I made one of the, I guess they would be the equivalent of an egg in Pokemon. The egg got used up, and then I just got confused, and I was too stoned to continue, which is a problem on my end. And I was just like, Jay, I do not have the common sense intelligence, I should say, to do anything with this game. Help me, I'm your bitch. And Jay was like, I'm here to save you. Or he was just like, yeah, I knew you were too stupid. So I prepared myself. One of the two.
Yeah, it was the second one.
Yep. So Jay, Palworld, you played about 22 hours because you're actually a smart human being. Give a synopsis on it. What the hell is it?
I think the easiest way to explain Palworld is to relate it to other games that are very popular, such as Monster Hunter. In Monster Hunter, you have a hub world where you're going to gather your resources out in the field and bring them back to your hub world and prepare for the next mission out in the open fields. Now, this isn't too far off, except this is where the Pokemon and slavery and guns comes into play. Because while you're out in the field, the main objective is to capture pals and bring them back to your hub world and use their abilities, not their fighting abilities, because that's one thing that happens in the open, world. This is more about using their abilities in the hub world. So each Pokemon, I'm just keep calling them Pokemon, has a stat system, and they have likes and dislikes, and sometimes they'll want more food, or they'll want to only deal with collecting wood or collecting stone. This is a resource management game at its heart as well. So this means that you do need to collect wood and stone at the beginning of the game to be able to build up your hub world, but you're going to use the abilities of the pals to do that. So it's this sort of cycle system that plays through. You go to the hub world, you build it up, you run out of resources, you go back into the open world, you get a few more pals and you bring them back. Then you start to see, okay, well, at the beginning of the game, it's very difficult to understand what's going on. But once you get that grasp that, yeah, you can essentially set up these pals at your hub world to take care of everything for you, feed themselves, collect wood, collect stone, to do all these things, that's when the game really opens up around level 25, and you're able to start building guns and taking this team of amazing pals that you've collected out into the field and battle other pals and other, obviously this is a multiplayer game, so other players. And that's where the game shines. So I wouldn't say that it's, mind-blowing when it comes to the creation aspect of your hub world. It's pretty good, but keep in mind this is only 60% done. So they're going to add more, obviously more pals to the game and more items that you'll unlock. So that's really the gist of what this game is about.
I want to say the tutorial is even... I know I'm stupid. I'll be the first to admit when it comes to games like this, that's why I'm shocked that I got through Elden Ring. But it just nonsensical. Like, I just felt like it was telling me to get things and I would get them, and then it wouldn't tell me how to actually do something with it. Now, I have not played other crafting games. That may be the norm, and I'm just a moron. But it just felt like a lot of things that should have been, I'm a fairly intelligent human being, somewhat. I can read, and I was continuing to read it, and it was just like, okay, I have this, and it's just not making sense. So that, I think, is what my issue was too. And I'm like, look, these games are also my weakness, so I'll just kind of recuse myself from a full opinion, minus the tutorial, and just ask Jay questions.
Yeah, and let me add in there that it's interesting to have somebody play the game that really isn't into the genre of crafting or even Pokemon in a sense. So it's kind of cool to hear you say that the tutorial was terrible in your opinion. I think a lot of people will play this game and think the tutorial's terrible. It reminded me of a mobile game in the sense where you have a certain amount of tasks that you need to do, and all of a sudden you'll hit a wall. However, once you get over the wall, it opens up 5 new tasks, and then you go do that. It's kind of like on the rails game play. It's not really freedom until you get up into the higher levels past the tutorial.
I noticed that, and I think that's the thing that kind of frustrated me, is that I wanted to, all right, let me Elden Ring it then, which is how I kind of, with YouTube videos, but you could kind of go wherever you want and trudge your way through and just get your ass handed to you and learn some lessons. It was like, all right, I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe if I mess around, I could learn what I'm doing, but you're not letting me mess around, so I'm sitting here like an idiot, and I can't even get through the tutorial.
Yeah, it's one of those games that is definitely set up like a mobile game. I don't think the team are a AAA developer, that's for sure. It's an indie game. But in saying that, let me also throw this out there. The game has now sold 7 million copies since its release on Steam alone. And that's not including Game Pass, downloads or anything of that nature. So the game is super massive at the moment, and we'll get into why I think it's going to be even bigger. What is the game essentially in its base level? What are the gameplay loops? It is Pokemon, but it's not turn-based. So you are finding monsters, you're picking them up, bringing them back to your quote-unquote sort of farm or your hub area, your base as they call it in the game, and you're able to use those Pokemon now. I'm just going to call them Pokemon, even though they're called pals, but you're able to use them to essentially run your quote-unquote farm or your base, whatever you want to call it. So once you're in your farm, once you get some animals in there or monsters, you're able to assign them. They all have stats. It starts to get deeper and deeper, and that's where the tutorial kind of misleads you at the beginning of the game, because you're like, what is going on here? I'm just grabbing guys and throwing them into my, PAL box, but what is the PAL box? It doesn't explain any of this stuff. But as you get through the game, you start to realize, oh, this game is about slavery.
It doesn't really explain anything at all. I mean, I guess people could argue that they think that's an asset for the game, where it's just kind of throws you out there and leaves you up to your own intelligence and free will. But if you don't let me be free, then I have to go by your will. How are the Pokemon in relation to the monsters in Palworld? Do you see similarities?
Yes, absolutely. So I would say that you're going to see almost, I wouldn't say one-to-one. This game doesn't take itself so seriously. It's kind of making fun of the whole Pokemon brand by naming things like Depresso, and he walks around and looks depressed the whole time. But you got to keep in mind, I should just say this right off the bat, that this game is not about being kind to your Pokemon and building a team that you're in love with, because eventually you're going to also use them as weapons against other players and other monsters. So it's not the same type of game. You're using these Pokemon in this game, called pals in the game, as a workforce to basically overcome the enemy. You're not using them to befriend them. You're not friends with them. You can be cute with them and, pet them and do all that stuff like you do in Pokemon. But again, you're using them in slavery. You literally set up shops closer to the end game that will be like production lines, and you can whip them and shoot them and tell them to work faster. And it's really unbelievable. And it's partly why the game's so popular, I think. Everyone's so used to Pokemon being a kid's game. Put that on its head, throw in some Fortnite battling, throw in some crafting, and this is what you get.
And that's what's alluring to people. It's, it's kind of, a lot of people are saying it's doing things they've wanted Pokemon to do, the Pokemon series to do for years, and this company has listened.
Absolutely. I think that taking out the turn-based strategy of Pokemon and just throwing in a Fortnite battle system with guns, and obviously you can throw the Pokemon out in this game and use them as weapons, utilize their abilities. So one of them will be a shield. One of them you could ride, and he's got a missile launcher on him.
Yeah, you could go around and actually slap him. I did some of that. I mean, it's not the most enthralling combat in the world, at least where I was, let me say. But yeah, it's real time. Like I said, I was punching chickens.
Yeah, let me throw in that the combat really doesn't take off until level 25. That's when you start to, have the ability to create some of the weapons that you're going to want to use in the game, like the guns, the rocket launchers, that sort of stuff. Again, there's not really a learning curve because I think a lot of people play Fortnite these days or games of that nature. So once you get past, I'd say level 15, if you can get there, because I don't think the game's for everybody, that's for sure. But if you get to level 15 and you're into Minecraft, and there's aspects of Breath of the Wild in here as well, which I thought was kind of interesting. The creator of the game, he's definitely obsessed with Nintendo games, but he did just release a statement saying that he's not trying to reinvent the wheel with this game. He just saw an opportunity to take Pokemon and Fortnite and all these other games and create something unique. And guess what? It sold 7 million copies since release date, and I think that's working for him.
I thought that when I first started playing, like initially when you're running up, I feel like is this Breath of the Wild? Like it felt like the like the way the grass and vegetation were and stuff. It looked like Breath of the Wild when you first started playing. So that it was interesting that you said that. So let's talk about something else here. Like, we're not going to go over everything, guys, because we would be here for 10 hours. How is building? Is it easy to build in here, or is it a crappy system that they have?
I'd say it's mid at best. It's not spectacular. It's not as tuned as, say, Fortnite. It isn't as good as something like Minecraft, where you really have a high level of customization. As you get deeper into the game, there's definitely a lot you can do with your houses, and there's reasons why you want to build a house. But it's mostly, it's just mid. I wouldn't say it's spectacular. However, I did just read an interview with the creator who says that, we just sold 7 million copies, so the first thing we're going to do is make this game stable, because it is a multiplayer game, which I'll touch upon in a little bit. But he's also saying that they're planning on adding new monsters and new crafting abilities and new crafting items. So the game, really, it's only 60% done, and for, 20 whatever dollars US it is, I saw Eurogamer crap all over the game saying that it's this mediocre building battle game, but I'm like, you guys realize this isn't a done game. It's an early access. So that didn't quite make sense to me. And
I know you're going to slap me across the breast because you said not to cut you off. But here's the thing. I think it was $30 for me, or $40 or whatever. You're asking a retail price have something that is in better condition. Sorry. Early access stuff annoys me a little bit. If you're asking for someone's hard-earned money, have something that's at least semi-competent. Don't have them be an alpha tester where it's something that's unfinished, where their money was just basically thrown to the wayside. And that may turn the person off towards the game. Even if the game may be vastly superior when it comes out, you're asking for the money up front, and they see this turd. Even if they understand that it may be better, they may be so turned off by what they saw, they may not go back to it. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox now. Touch me.
Well, let me also reiterate on this that I don't think the game is that bad in terms of gameplay. Once you get past like a level 10, 15, you're starting to see what this game really is about. When you get into multiplayer and you have your monster team built up, it is a blast to play. With multiplayer on Steam is unbelievable, especially when you get into the later levels and you start to unlock the guns. That's where the game shines. So there is, again, a bit of a learning curve, and also a bit of a curve of this is amateur hour from, a certain standpoint with some of the textures and whatnot, but it isn't as bad as Eurogamer made it out to be. I'd say that it's definitely a lot better than most of the early access games that basically hardly run.
Yeah, I don't know, early access, it makes my blood boil. It shouldn't be something that should be sold. I guess it's a way for you to enjoy the product, and a way for the company to get funding, especially if they're an indie company. But it just still pisses me off. Yeah, visuals. What did you think of the graphics?
I mean, I played most of the game on Xbox, and it's not spectacular. I mean, it's still the best looking Pokemon game that's ever been made, so I'm sure that Nintendo's looking at this thinking like, wow, maybe we need to step it up. That's one aspect of this game that I think is absolutely fascinating because the Pokemon fan base has wanted something like this, not necessarily Pokemon with guns, but they want more of a system in place that is not just about collecting the Pokemon. You want to live in that world. Now, Pokemon Legends kind of did that. It stepped into the world and we got a lot of good feedback, based on that gameplay design. But in this game, it's like taking Fortnite, taking a base building game, crafting, and throwing Pokemon just throughout the whole world. It's unbelievable. And I honestly think this game's going to go on to sell, 20 million copies within the first month here, for sure. And there's no doubt about it. Nintendo's probably a little, nervous about this. I think it's making Nintendo look embarrassing. It's very embarrassing. To have an indie group come together and create a game that's way better than any Pokemon game we've got in the last 5-10 years.
I 100% agree. And look, again, I admit it's not my cup of tea, and they're on to something because many other people are enjoying it. I just kind of vented generally about general access and how I feel about it.
Let me just close this out by saying a few things about all the controversial things surrounding the game. First and foremost, the use of AI in the game. There's no proof that he used any AI in the development cycle. He's stated in the past when he has used AI in his other software and his other games, so it would not make sense for him to be like, yeah, we're not, and then do that. So that's number one. Number two, everyone's saying this is just a ripoff of Pokemon. I don't think people realize it's just not Pokemon with guns. It's Pokemon with guns, with a different fighting system. It's not turn-based. You're going to have a blast with your friends online, but it's also how you can interact with the pals in the game. You're able to, again, I'm going to say beat the shit out of them and put them into slavery, but you're also able to sort of build a team that you really, really get attached to, and that team could follow you out into the battlefield. You just throw them down, use their abilities. So you can see the game's not just simply a turn-based battle between two Pokemon. You could also just throw a pal down and watch him fight another pal. And that's just like entertaining in its own right because they all have their own abilities and own stats and all of that. But in closing, like for the amount of money that you're paying for this, I think it's totally worth it if you're into crafting and Pokemon types of games. Again, it's not turn-based. So remember, it's more like Fortnite battling rather than a Pokemon system. So I highly recommend it, and it runs pretty good on Xbox. I will just add that there's two versions. The Steam version is updated a lot quicker than the Xbox one, so don't expect them to be one-to-one. And also I'll say there's no cross-play. So if you are on PC, you can't play with your friends on Xbox. It's stuck to its own system. So I had a blast with it. I highly recommend it.
And it did seem to run good on PC, so I had no issues with performance there. I did, like I said, play the tutorial for an hour, so what I saw, it ran pretty good. All right, so those are Jay's, I will say, first impressions of Palworld. I went on a rant about early access. That was quite fun. So enjoy, guys. Let me know what you think of Palworld in the description. And this is Rich and Jay signing out. Have a good one.